Hi guys, Battle One here, coming at you with a new Yu-Gi-Oh video. And today's Yu-Gi-Oh video, we are going to be discussing Pendulum Magicians and how they are basically the best deck of the format when you think about it. Now, Pendulum Magicians both have made it to the top two spots of both the UK Nationals and the American NWCQ, their nets, and I thought, seeing as these decks have actually shown their performance, this deck has shown how far it can go, how far it can do, and what it can do in the format, that I would basically talk about why this deck actually has made it to this area in the game and why it still is one of the most competitive decks. And I know I've said that losing Starving Venom really has killed the deck, and I'm still not going back on that because it makes it harder for you to win against Scapegoat, it makes you harder to win against Dinos, it makes you harder to win against all these rogue decks. Plus, I felt, and I know I didn't take this deck to the UK Nationals, I took Autogeist, but I thought there would be more Autogeist players there, and I didn't play a single one, so I should have just taken Magicians. But essentially, this video, we're going to be talking about why this deck was able to do what it did twice, and why it could have why it should have won these events actually. Because when you think about it, these decks, they should have won very easily. Like they had everything in hand, they had everything to go, but just they got unlucky. They got unlucky, and that's really why they didn't actually get to where they need to be. But let's talk about this. So let's start off by how they were actually able to do what they were able to do. Well, when you're looking at Pendulum Magicians, you've got to look at the areas that are most important in the deck. The consistency, how well they can stop your opponent, and how well it can OTK. Now, in each of these Pendulum decks, there was a load of consistency. There was the Mythical Beast engine that was able to consistently get to the Jackal King then gets you to the Cerberus out of the extra deck. That gets you to the Electromite very easily. There was also Chronographs, Abyss Actor, Curtain Raiser, there was also Dark Worm engines to get you to the level 7s. Like, the engines that you played in the deck were very consistent because you could always get to these areas to get you to a Pendulum board, to get you to your Electromite, and then to eventually get you to a Vortex Dragon as well, which would allow you to make your negate board with, say, a Jackal King and anything else you could possibly want. Now, looking at it from that perspective, the decks were very consistent. They had the consistency, they had the way to stop your opponent, they had the plays to do. Now, let's look at both top cuts of the American and UK Nationals. Now, the first top cut in UK was Pendulum Magicians versus Burning Abyss. Now, Burning Abyss was probably a very good matchup for the Pendulum Magician player, in my opinion. The deck has a lot of plays to out a lot of what it can do. But the only reason this deck couldn't get to where it wanted to be, first place at the Nationals, was because the guy bricked. He bricked very hard. He opened double harmonizing and Pot of Desires and other cards that he could not use to establish a board, and ended up getting ashed on his desires. The only way for him to gain consistency in his deck, and the only way to get him two possible plays. Then game 2, he opened his Garnets, which was, I believe, Zhangxi Magician and Time Gazer Magician. And those two cards you never want to see in your opening hand. Like, that was a complete and total brick for the guy, and it made him lose the nats. Like bricking in Magicians is one of the hardest things that can happen, and there are very few ways to brick in Magicians because the deck can actually consistently go through all of its cards very easily, even if it somewhat bricks. It just depends on how you brick. Like, if you can still build a board, say, with like a Babusco or something like that, you can still potentially play the game. But the way he had it, he didn't have enough cards to play the game. So that's why he lost to Burning Abyss. And on the NWCQ against Goki, Pendulum Magicians only lost to them because of Drag Down. And I'm not saying like the guy was wrong to play Drag Down or anything like that. The Drag Down was a very smart choice, seeing as being able to deal with hand traps in your opponent's hand before they can use them against you. That was a very good play. But if it wasn't for that drag down, I am 100% sure that the Pendulum Magician player would have won that duel, because he had the impermanence to stop either the Firewall Dragon, which is very key to the combo, or the Assault to send an equip pet spell from the deck to the graveyard, which is also very key to the combo. And without these parts of the combo that you can't get to and you can't extend your plays, you're not going to get very far. So looking at it from these perspectives, why they lost, it's purely because, one, there was a brick, 2 bricks in a row, which was very upsetting to see in the finals of the UK Nationals, seeing as it was like a 5-minute duel and nothing happened very much. And then you've got to look at the NWCQ in America that showed the opponent just having drag down, getting rid of the impermanence, and then that won him the game. Like, you've got to look into these areas to actually realize why this deck didn't get so far. Like, sure, he could have continued on, he could have gone further, but as soon as you make a Goki board against Magicians, Magicians lose. Like, it's kind of like how back in the day, against Mermails, when the original Pendulum Old Eyes Magicians came out, you've got to look at it from that standpoint. And someone just came in my room, that's why I just did that. But you've got to look at it from that standpoint. Like, against Mermails, it was whoever could FTK first. Whoever could go against the opponent and, build the board first and stop them from playing the game. You've got to look at it from those standpoints. And talking about it from that area really shows how the deck was able to lose those games, I know, but we've also got to talk about how the deck is able to win his games. Now, let's look at Magicians in general. What can Magicians do in this current format? Well, going first, the deck can build an OTK board very easily through making cards like Jackal King with negates. On monster effects, you can make FA Dawn Dragster to negate spell and traps. You can make Naruto to do the exact same thing. And you can also make a Vortex Dragon to negate monster or spells and traps. And knowing that you can negate these different things, that's your turn 1 board. You want to make as many negates as possible turn 1 to be able to counter your opponent as easily as possible. That is something that you always want to do turn 1, regardless of what your opponent can bring out. And that's kind of the boards that you always want to make turn 1. And that being said, going up against a deck like Trickstar Sky Strikers, being able to negate the Candina, or being able to negate the Light Stage, or being able to negate the Start Up Engage to stop them from getting to the Hornet bits, to keep getting advantage. Like, these are all things that you've got to take into account when looking at these decks, because you've got to see where in the areas you can negate and how you can do. And against a deck like Trickstar Sky Strikers, sure, without Starving Venom, you can't beat the Scapegoat. But you can still clear the Scapegoat with stuff like Supreme King Starving Venom. No, sorry, not Supreme King Starving Venom. Supreme King Clearwing, which is a Raigeki, or you could clear it with other cards similar to it, which is very good, because of when you look at it from those standpoints, to blow out your opponent, it's very powerful to be able to main deck cards that can do Raigekis, that can kill your opponent. And even if you're going second, the deck still has many OTK potentials, such as through Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon, Supreme King Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon, which is basically, at least at most times, a 4K beat stick, which is just insane when you think about it, because if you can build a 4K beat stick turn 1, that's pretty good. And also the fact that if you're playing Trapeze Magician, you could do Decode and Trapeze Magician to do an OTK in that standpoint. There's a way area there. And I know a lot of people weren't playing Decode Talker, they were playing the Zephyrling monster. But the Zephyrling monster in its own right is still very powerful as well, being able to gain you additional advantage if your opponent somehow removes cards from its zone, and you just get to gain additional advantage back. Plus, Magicians are even more powerful this format, just because we got weird cards like Raigeki and Dark Hole. They're out of favor. Like, those cards are not really good this format, because there aren't a lot of swarm decks in the format outside of Goki, and Goki can just stop from being destroyed by card effects, just thanks to the dog, Nightmare Cerberus. And you've always got to take into account why this deck is so powerful. Like, this deck is able to counter decks like Trickstar Sky Striker very easily, being able to go for OTK power, OTKs like that, like no problem whatsoever. And you've got to also look at the fact of how, against something like the Goki deck, if you go first, they're not winning because you can just stop their combo before the combo starts. So looking at it from these perspectives, the deck actually is the most powerful, one of the most powerful decks of the format, and it's shown it to do that both at the NWCQ and the UK Nationals. So why did I want to make this video? Well, I basically wanted to show that Pendulum Magicians are still literally the top kings of the format. Like, they are still one of the best decks of the format, and if people don't realize this and see that Magicians are still able to conquer the game, then you're not going to be able to beat them. Because something I've realized since I stopped playing Magicians a few weeks ago, I'm probably going back to it now, don't judge me, it's that Magicians, they are always relevant. Magicians have just so much in them through stuff like Starving Venom, through stuff like Purple Poison, Black Fang, Wisdom Eye, Pendulum Call, Chronograph, Electromite. This deck has just so much in it that there's no way you can't consider it being just a very powerful deck. And looking at it from that standpoint, I know it's like, oh, he's just talking about this just to say he can win a game with it. No, I'm saying this because it actually is one of the most powerful decks. And what happened at the NWCQ and the UK Nationals was unfortunate for both of those Pendulum players. It was unfortunate because the UK one bricked game 1 and 2, and the American one just got dragged down and lost because of a drag down. Like, if they didn't have those, if the Pendulum player in UK Nest didn't break, I'm sure he would have been able to win, because Pendulum Magicians can play through drag down, can play through draw, Ash, anything like that. The deck can play through these cards very easily, and it's something you've got to realize when debating on these cards and this deck. How far can this deck go, and how well can this deck play? But guys, that's just my personal opinions on what happened at these two events. Pendulum Magicians, they should have been able to get further. They could have get further. But honestly, I feel like this deck is still the most powerful deck in the format. Easily topping Sky Striker Trickstars. Easily toppling Trickstars. Obviously, it's going to lose to the Autogeist if they anti-spell you. But yeah, guys, that's the video. Tell me what you thought of it in the comment section below. Do you think Magicians should have won those events? Do you think they had the right to? Do you think they got kind of cheated out of those events? Tell me all that in the comment section below, because I like to hear your opinions on it. I like to hear your thoughts. And honestly, do you guys think Pendulum Magicians are still one of the best decks? Do you think they are still very powerful? Do you think they're still amazing? Give me all of your thoughts in the comment section below, because I love to hear your opinions. Just to hear what you have to say, what you have to talk about, and all of that. But yeah, guys, Pendulum Magicians, they're still super relevant, and you're probably going to see some more duel videos from me with them. But as always, guys, I already told you to comment. Don't forget to like to show that you liked the video and want to see more YouTube videos like this. Don't forget to press the subscription button to get future Yu-Gi-Oh! Content in your subscription box, and don't forget to press the notification button to be notified of any streams, videos, and anything like that that I make in the future. But yeah, guys, I can't wait to try Magicians more. I can't wait to see what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going to become, but I'll see you guys next time. Pendulum Magicians, you got cucked twice. I'm sorry. Bye, guys. Robot1, signing out.